Hi, it's Dr. Lori. It's time for some more Q&A. So questions and answers. I get them from all different places, from YouTube, you guys are asking me, or comments on YouTube or Facebook or social media channels, Instagram, wherever it is. So lots of folks will ask me these questions, and they're about all different topics. So they're about selling, they're about buying, they're about how do we antique smart, how do I identify something, should I get something repaired, all different topics, hodgepodge. Here we go. I got to get my glasses on, and let's see what we've got. I'm going to pick them out of the bowl. This is my Grandma Nellie's bowl. And I love this bowl, and they used to make everything in it. A pizza game, they used to make brownies, everything went in the bowl, right? I don't know what else, but anyway, so we're gonna use this bowl to help us do this today. Okay, here we go. First one. I've been very lucky to find MCM, mid-century modern, items and find them and sell. I've been selling them for very nice prices. So however, selling them as an individual is sometimes difficult. I've even put a piece up for consignment. Okay, and I was told that an item sold for $500. So this person put up an item, $500 for consignment. I later discovered it was sold for almost $15,000 by the consignment shop. How, Dr. Lori, does someone sell without being taken advantage of? Well, the first thing is pretty easy, right? The first thing is know who you're dealing with, right? Make sure that who you're dealing with is who you want to be dealing with. So you have to do a little bit of investigating on these people. Not all consignment shops are created equal. So the other thing I will tell you, and one of the most important things with respect to this particular question, is you need an appraisal, because you should have known that that piece is worth somewhere upwards of $15,000 when you agreed to say, oh yeah, you can let it go for $500. So you have to take some kind of responsibility too, and getting an appraisal is one of the ways that you can do that. You know, $500 to $15,000, that's not some fluke. That's somebody who didn't know what they had. That's why I'm here. I want you to know what you have. I want you to learn, what do you have? But selling is not all that easy. So you're saying, hey, you know, I was taken advantage of, but you have to know who you're dealing with, and you have to also think about what is the percentage that the consignment shop is taking. Right? So how much of that were they owed, and did you agree to at the beginning when you made this deal, right? Did they take 40%? Did they take 20%? Did they take 60%? You know, you have to make sure that you're aware of that you made that particular deal, and you have to make sure that you know, in fact, what you've got and what it's worth before it goes off to the consignment shop. $15,000 for something that you agreed $500, that's really not good news. Next. Let's see what we've got next. So, thank you, Dr. Lori. I'm just getting into the business of used, antique, and vintage items. I'm always happy to hear this. I like to hear that you folks are getting into the business, because, you know, there's a lot out there. It's a lot of joy. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot to learn, and a lot of times it really can bring you a great return on investment. So think about that, and good, get into the business, try it. You know, I'm not saying you've got to, you know, sell fantastic things, or you have to, of course, invest a lot of money, but try it. Go slowly, learn from me, and I know you'll be successful. I want you empowered. All right, here's the question. I need to know, where do you go to get good prices for your items? Good prices for your items. Okay, well, this all depends on the item, okay? So it all depends on the item. One size does not fit all. So people will say to me, well, you know, I want to go and sell these things, and I want to make a lot of money on it. Well, you have to know your item, you have to know your market, and you have to in fact sell to that market. You have to know where your niche is. So for example, if you're going to sell something like, you know, Yadro figurines, most guys who are watching football every Sunday are not buying Yadro figurines. So maybe you're not selling to the sports related auctions, right? Maybe you're thinking about, okay, who do I want to address when I'm trying to sell these things? The other thing I want you to think about with respect to where do I go to sell these things, it's not just one answer. You just don't go to everything gets sold to, you know, Joe's Antiques all the time, or everything gets sold to Jim's auction all the time, because certain things will sell better in certain areas, at certain times of the year, in certain groups or parts or types. So you want to think about all those things when you're trying to sell your items. Don't just think of one place, it's many places. And you have to market in many places too. Okay, what's next? Oh, I think I need my glasses for this. I had a wind-up dog toy when I was young. It was my favorite toy in the whole world. And sadly, when my parents divorced, my mom sold it in a garage sale. I would kill to have one of those again. Well, you would? How do I find my toy? Okay, a couple of tips here. First of all, parents, don't throw out your kids' stuff. And kids, get your stuff out of your parents' house. And people go, oh gosh, Dr. Lori, my mother threw away my baseball cards. I hear that about, I don't know, once every time I see an audience. My mom threw out my baseball cards. Well, you know, you're 45 years old now. Get your baseball cards and get them at your house because your mom doesn't want to hold up all your stuff, carry all your stuff, store all your stuff. So think about that. That's the other thing. And parents, don't just assume that your kid's stuff isn't worth anything. I had one client, Star Wars collectibles, the entire basement Star Wars collectibles, and this woman wanted to throw it all away. I mean, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars in Star Wars collectibles, and she's like, oh, my son never comes back here to get this stuff. You know, start to put a number on it and you'll do a little bit better. So anyway, she wants to know basically if she would have one of those again. So after you have these particular pieces, think about this. There's a seller out there who's trying to sell one of those little toy dogs that this woman is going to kill to buy. I want that particular seller to think about how they're going to connect with this buyer. This is important. And this is also why the toy collectibles market is so popular. The vintage toy market is really popular and vintage toys sell very high. You know why? Because we want to all regain our childhood. So when you're trying to get that important toy collectible, you're trying to sell it or you're trying to buy it, know what you've got and make sure that you connect to the emotion of it. It's a very emotional market. Okay, who's next? Let's see. Hi, Dr. Lori. I was wondering, is my piece even worth getting appraised? I don't think I need an appraisal. I just want to know the pattern. I don't want to know what this was used for. I want to know when it was made, and I want to know who made it. Sounds like an appraisal to me, right? You want to know all this information, but basically you're saying, oh no, I don't want an appraisal. Well, basically you do need an appraisal. Everybody thinks an appraisal is just about money and values and numbers and dollar signs. An appraisal is an educated analysis of the market. It's a correct identification, and then it is also an appraised value. Those three things are what an appraisal really is. So first of all, your appraiser has to be good, not just anybody throwing numbers around. Second of all, you have to make sure that you realize that when you ask, I want to know who made it, I want to know when it was made, I want to know how it was made, I want to know the pattern name, I want to know all this stuff. That all takes time, energy, expertise. And then you want to know the market too. That takes an analysis of the market, no different than what all the guys are doing on Wall Street when they're analyzing the stock market. It's very similar. Or when your realtor, your real estate appraiser is analyzing the real estate market. It's the same type of thing. Because a lot of times you'll say, oh, I didn't realize that that piece was going to go up in value. Well, an appraiser usually does realize that. So if you're looking for those types of things and you're trying to answer that particular question, remember you do need an appraisal. Now, do you need an appraisal all the time? I'm not one who says, yeah, you need an appraisal all the time. But in objects where you want to know all of this specific information, you need an appraisal. And don't think an appraisal is just about the money. An appraisal is about all of the attributes or traits that make something valuable. Okay, what's next? Let's see. Okay, so here's a question from one of my videos here on YouTube. And basically it says, well, I have a question on a glass decanter that you showed on one of your videos. Okay, so it says, if the top was ground down, there is a glass decanter I do in one of the videos, and actually the inside has a little tiny bit of damage on that particular stopper of the crystal decanter. So she says, if the top was ground down, the chip could be removed. Then she said, I normally wouldn't consider such a thing, Dr. Lori, but it's such a small chip that maybe you could do that, or maybe the person who has the decanter could do that. Is that something you would consider to be a good idea? I'm wondering if that would change the value too much. Well, basically, I would say to that there are a couple things that you have to think about that people don't always think about when they want to do a repair, like grinding down a piece of crystal, grinding down glass because there's a chip. Here's one of the things I want you to think about with respect to chips and such on crystal or glass. Make sure that while you grind it down, you are not taking out the integrity of the design. Sometimes if you grind something down, yes, you get rid of the chip, yes, you basically make it repaired, but what you end up doing is you end up basically not making the design look as good as it was intended originally. That's really important. So I want you to think about that. You might say, oh, I'm going to just take this vase and this vase is, this tall and it flares out, and then you have the top and there's a chip. I'm just going to take it down 1/4 of an inch. That 1/4 of an inch of that flare may not make it look as good as the designer intended. So don't be overzealous with this repair all the time. Now, that stopper and that little chip, you hardly can see. Most people wouldn't even notice it if they were utilizing that piece every day or even displaying it because the topper's inside and it's actually covered or hidden by the neck. So if it were me, I'd leave it alone. And a lot of people when you're selling, this is for you sellers out there, a lot of people when you're selling, remember this, that when you're selling it, people don't want it to be repaired a lot of the times. They're thinking, if you're going to sell it, leave it alone. Let the next guy, let the buyer decide what he wants to do. Okay, next question. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Laura, you've been a terrific help. Well, good. I'm supposed to be a terrific help. Great. I'm glad to hear that. But I think I disagree with you on this valuation. All right. So this comes from someone in my priority service. My priority service is the subscription service. So I send back information back and forth. So they send me a picture of something and I say, it's this, it's worth this, that kind of thing. I identify it and go back. And a lot of people use it and they have a 1 month or a 3 month subscription. Okay, so she says, I think I disagree with you. She was replying back to one of my replies. All right, so I don't mind this. That's fine. This is a conversation. That's okay. You could say whatever you want to me and I'll tell you or supporting evidence or prove to you why I think what I think. She said similar pieces have sold on eBay for $50 to $160 like this one. So when you say that this particular piece for the lot is only worth $200, I don't understand how mine are different from theirs. Okay, so she saw this one on eBay and basically she's saying that it's a similar piece, Dr. Lori. Well, it's not similar. That's first. People go, well, what do you mean it's not similar? It looks like that. I have to look at different things when I'm doing an appraisal. So now I'm evaluating, is the person on eBay, did he get it right? Is that correct compared to yours? Is the person on eBay actually also getting the right information? Or is this person also saying, you know what, I got it for nothing, I'm going to put it sky high? Or I really don't care, I just want to get rid of it, I'm going to list it very low. It all depends. Is that person on who's selling on eBay or who has sold on eBay, is that person actually the person who also bought it? So is the seller also the buyer? Or is the seller having a friend of his buy it, make it look like it's something that it's not, that it's sold for a really high amount? So it just depends. So, and when you say it looks similar, similar is not always the same thing, right? I look at a lot of things when I evaluate. Condition is one of the things that most people overlook. You will see all this stuff on all of these sites about all different objects, and they almost rarely talk about condition. One of the good examples is Beanie Babies. They're all talking about errors and tags when condition is very important as well as errors and tags. Don't go running around saying Dr. Lori doesn't think errors and tags are important on Beanie Babies. I'm not saying that. But condition becomes important, and that's usually the last thing they talk about. So, and some on listings don't talk about it at all. So it is not similar. So I want you to think about this. There's lots of different things. It may look the same. Is the color of the mark the same if you're looking at plates, for example? Because the color of the marks will change, and they'll change in time. That means that one plate might look the same in pattern, but it actually was made at a different time period because the marks on the back differ, even though they're by the same company. All right, next one. Let's see. What have we got here? If an antique trunk has been restored, does that lower the value? Well, some people like purity. You know what I mean by purity? Some people just like an old trunk to look like it's been used. You know, it looks like it went on the Titanic and then came out, and it was in, of course, storage, and then it moved back out onto an airplane or whatever it might be. So antique trunks are no different than any other object. This person just happened to ask about antique trunks. So basically, if you have an antique trunk and it's going to be restored, there are people who really like it to look antique. That is a thing, if you will. So there's that. But also you want to think about the fact that once you repair it, is the repair done well, and does the repair actually come together and look like the original time period of when the trunk was made. So if the trunk is made in 1910, right, is that in fact the way in which that repair looks like it's still from 1910? Or does it look like a 2020, repair on a 1910 trunk? So you got to be aware of that too. I'm not big on repairs if it's not absolutely necessary. There's so many collectors out there who love their stuff and who love the stuff in its current condition. But when it comes to condition, you've got to think about it because it does impact value. Okay, here's another one. Okay, let's see. I'm having a very large estate sale. I'm drowning in stuff. I need your help. We had a yard sale before we had the estate sale, and we made $2,500. Now, $2,500 at a yard sale is pretty darn good, right? Okay. It was good, but it was very traumatic, Dr. Lori. It was traumatic in how people treated us. They came into the yard sale, they ripped stuff off the walls in the house, they got in our faces about not being allowed to walk through the house that I'm living in. What should I have done? Well, this isn't actually a common story. It's a shame that people do behave this way at yard sales and at estate sales. A couple of things. If you are going to open it up to an estate sale, if you're a seller, you want to think about estate sale companies who can market for you locally because they know the local market. You need to know the appraised value of your objects. You need to also think about things like insurance, right? You also need to think about the fact that you will need security, right? Maybe it's security cameras around the estate sale if it's inside your home, and if you're living in that home, you've got to think about that. I can understand your trepidation. It's traumatic to have all these people coming through your house. It's traumatic to deal with the objects. That's difficult too. So you want to be aware of that as well. If you're going to have a yard sale or an estate sale, make sure you are prepared to do so. Imagine that you're going to have hundreds of people come by, because you might think, oh, we won't have that many people. We don't, live on a very busy street, or maybe we won't. You've got to think about, with the internet, if you are advertising on the internet, that there's going to be a lot of people. So prepare for a lot of people, prepare for a lot of activity, and make sure that you have a lot of help. This is Dr. Lori. I appreciate your questions. I hope you'll keep them coming. Any way you want to get them to me, get them to me. Our website, social media, YouTube comments, whatever it is, and I'll answer them coming up. Thanks.